Hello, Radiant Leo. If you're watching this right now, let me say this loud and clear from the very first second: this isn't just a horoscope. This is a coded cosmic message, delivered through 6 sacred numbers, aligned specifically with your energy between April 18th and April 20th. And trust me when I say, this message found you because you're ready. Have you been feeling that quiet nudge lately? That whisper in the back of your mind that something, or someone, is about to shift your path in a big way? That's not a coincidence. That's not the algorithm. That's alignment. Because Leo, you weren't just born to shine, you were born to lead. And the universe? It's opening a door. The question is, will you step through it? From the way your heart beats faster when you imagine something bigger, to the way your spirit leans forward when truth is spoken, this moment is yours. You're not here by accident. You're here because something powerful, something ancient, is waking up inside you. And this video is the spark you've been waiting for. These 6 lucky numbers are not random. They're vibrational keys. Each one unlocks a layer of your destiny, from financial upgrades to soul-level clarity. But in order to receive, you need to be present. Fully. Deeply. Honestly. So let me ask you something. What guided you here today? Was it a number you kept seeing? A dream you couldn't shake? A question you asked in silence? If anything stirred in you just now, drop the first number that comes to mind in the comments below. That might be the key the universe is waiting for you to claim. Don't wait for confirmation. If you feel it, type it. And while we're here in this space together, let me take a moment to say thank you. Thank you for your presence, for your openness, for your heart. Every like, every comment, every moment you spend here is more than just a click, it's an act of alignment. It deepens your connection to our family at Eternal Mindfulness, a growing community of souls who believe in transformation, synchronicity, and showing up for their own evolution. Your support fuels this message, and brings it to those who need it most. And trust me when I say this, dear Leo, you'll want to stay with me until the very end of this video. Because what the universe is about to reveal is nothing short of magnificent. This is not just about luck. This is about frequency. About readiness. About becoming the kind of person who holds the abundance you've been asking for. So take a deep breath. Let go of everything outside this moment. And walk with me, step by step, through the sacred energy of 6 numbers that are waiting to change everything. Let's begin. There are moments in life when the most powerful move is not to step forward, but to step inward. And that's exactly what the number 7 is asking of you now. After the opening energy we just explored, the sense that something extraordinary is approaching, this part of your journey invites you not to chase it, but to listen for it. Not to prove your readiness, but to become so rooted in your own presence that the clarity you seek rises up naturally from within. For Leo, who's often called to lead, dazzle, and express, this may feel unfamiliar at first. But the truth is, the more radiant the light, the more stillness it needs to burn clean. The energy of 7 is subtle but profound. In numerology, it's often referred to as the seeker, the number of inner wisdom, reflection, and spiritual refinement. But even beyond that system, the essence of 7 speaks to the process of becoming whole without needing to be loud. It doesn't demand a stage, it asks for stillness. It doesn't celebrate quick wins, it values deep understanding. For you, Leo, this number arrives like a gentle hand on your shoulder, reminding you that you don't have to roar to be powerful. Sometimes, your most commanding presence is the silence between your breaths. You may start noticing this subtle shift in your daily life. Perhaps you feel a tug to pause more often, to pull away from distractions, or to observe your own thoughts with more curiosity than judgment. That's the number 7 moving through you, not as something to be figured out, but as something to be witnessed. Give yourself permission to slow down without guilt. Take 30 minutes to write without expectation. What thoughts return again and again? What themes refuse to leave? When you stop rushing past your own inner landscape, you start to hear the patterns, and those patterns hold the clues to your next alignment. There's a certain kind of intelligence that can't be taught, it can only be uncovered. And it lives inside you. But like water, it's clearest when undisturbed. The more you let yourself soften, the more your inner knowing can rise to the surface. This is not the kind of guidance that arrives in lightning bolts or grand visions. It's quieter than that. It might feel like a subtle tension releasing in your chest, or a sudden sense of ease while reading a sentence that hits differently. The number 7 doesn't come to impress, it comes to reveal, and only when you're still enough to receive. There's a timeless wisdom that teaches how insight arises not from forcing clarity but from ceasing to interfere with it. The same way a muddy pond clears when left untouched, your mind and energy also clarify when you stop trying to control the flow. This isn't about sitting cross-legged in a perfect meditation posture. It's about the way you stir your coffee in the morning. The way you walk slower on purpose. The way you notice the breath before the thought. Every small moment can become a doorway into presence, and presence is where intuitive power begins to grow. If your mind feels foggy or your path unclear, it doesn't mean you've lost your way. It may simply mean you're being asked to look differently, not outward, but inward. The law of alignment teaches that wealth, opportunity, and clarity are not summoned from outside sources. They are magnetized when your internal frequency becomes a safe place for them to land. You don't need to chase luck. You only need to align with the version of yourself that would know what to do when it arrives. As you breathe in light and exhale heaviness, remember this: your energy doesn't need to be louder, it just needs to be clearer. The number 7 is your invitation to refine, to remember, and to reconnect. It's a quiet power. But for a sign as luminous as Leo, it might just be the kind of power you've secretly been craving all along. Sometimes, healing doesn't come as a grand moment of transformation. It arrives in the soft decision to return to a promise you once made to yourself, a quiet vow, whispered long ago, that you would become the person your heart knew you could be. After spending time in the energy of number 7, where you were invited to pause, listen, and reconnect with your inner clarity, you're now being gently guided towards something just as powerful but more personal: the reclamation of your own honor. This is the deeper message behind the number 17. Number 17 carries with it a layered frequency. It is not just a number, it is a mirror. The 1 represents beginnings, action, and the courage to step forward. The 7, as you've already felt, brings depth, introspection, and sacred intelligence. Together, They do something beautiful. They invite you to begin again, but not as a blank slate. Instead, 17 says, begin again, this time with everything you've learned. It honors the complexity of your story and calls you to rise not in spite of your past, but with it as your foundation. This moment is not about starting over in the way the world often pressures us to, from scratch, with perfection. No. It's about picking up the thread that was never really broken, only paused. And for Leo, whose identity is closely tied to legacy, recognition, and purpose, this is no small invitation. When you were younger, perhaps even just a few years or months ago, you may have felt a vision burning inside of you, a calling that gave you goosebumps. But then life happened. Delays, detours, doubts. Maybe you walked away from that version of yourself, not because it was wrong, but because the world told you to be realistic. And yet, here it is again. Number 17 is your reminder that just because you stepped away doesn't mean you've lost your way. There is a quiet teaching passed down through centuries that says true freedom doesn't come from doing more. It comes from recognizing what is already within your reach and reclaiming it with presence. You don't need to be fixed. You need to be remembered. This number calls you back into alignment with the part of yourself that never stopped believing, even when your outer world made you question everything. That's the healing. That's the redemption of dignity, when you choose to honor your inner knowing, regardless of how long it's been ignored. Think of something you once told yourself you'd do. Maybe it was a dream you shelved. A habit you meant to return to. A version of you that felt alive, authentic, and true, even if it wasn't loud or understood. Now is the time to gently walk back to it. Not with urgency. Not with guilt. But with quiet reverence. Sit with that promise again. Write it down. Breathe into it. Let it reintroduce itself to you. There's a deep wisdom in recognizing that delay is not failure, it's part of refinement. And sometimes the most sacred journeys require the longest paths. You might also feel the call to offer yourself forgiveness, not because you did something wrong, but because you've carried the weight of unmet expectations for too long. Place your hand on your heart and say, I forgive myself for going slow. I forgive myself for not knowing then what I know now. I'm here. I'm listening. These simple words, said with sincerity, can untangle years of inner resistance. Like water gradually softening stone, your compassion for yourself is what makes space for real momentum to return. Remember, when you rise again, you don't just do it for yourself. You rise for every forgotten dream, every silenced voice, every part of your lineage that didn't get the chance to finish the story. You are not late. You are right on time. And this time, you don't have to carry it alone. This time, you're walking with wisdom in your bones and light in your steps. That is the energy of 17, not just hope, but a hope reborn in clarity. And just like that, the journey shifts again, not outward, but inward, into the tender landscape of your heart. After reclaiming your promise to yourself and realigning with your inner truth through the power of number 17, the arrival of number 6 brings a softer, more emotional resonance. It doesn't push for action or clarity. It simply asks you to feel, to connect, and to restore balance where it may have quietly gone missing. This number speaks to the spaces where love lives, not the performative kind, but the kind that soothes, anchors, and heals. For Leo, who is so often seen as the fearless leader, the fierce protector, the one who walks into the fire first and leaves last, number 6 offers something radically different. It asks you not to lead, not to prove, but to allow. To allow warmth in. To allow kindness to settle. To allow support to reach you, without guilt, without resistance. There is great strength in the fire that drives you, but there is also beauty in letting that fire soften into a gentle glow. And sometimes, the greatest form of courage is letting yourself be held. In numerology, 6 is known as the number of harmony, family, caregiving, and unconditional love. It encourages you to tend to your emotional well-being the way a gardener tends to soil, gently, consistently, with patience and devotion. But this is not just about relationships with others. It's about how you relate to yourself. How often do you check in with your own heart, not to fix it, but just to listen? How often do you let your defenses down long enough to hear what your deeper needs are? Number 6 is the quiet invitation to begin that dialogue again. Consider the moments in your life where love showed up unexpectedly, through a kind word, a long-forgotten message, a gesture of care. Now consider this: how many of those moments were you truly open to receiving? And how many did you brush off because you didn't want to feel vulnerable? That's the gentle mirror 6 holds up. Not to shame you, but to remind you that you don't need to armor yourself to be worthy of love. Real strength is not built by resisting connection, it's built by nurturing it. There's a saying that compassion is the natural response when wisdom ripens. And perhaps, that's what this part of your journey is really about. Not grand gestures or declarations, but the subtle ways you begin to choose kindness over judgment, both toward others and yourself. Maybe this looks like sending a quiet thank you to someone who supported you long ago. Maybe it means asking a simple but honest question in your current relationship: am I giving from love, or from control? Not every answer will be easy. But every answer will bring you closer to wholeness. And if you're walking alone right now, know that number 6 doesn't only apply to romantic or familial bonds. It's also the number of community, the soul-level recognition that we are all connected, that care doesn't need a title to be real. Perhaps there is someone, somewhere, whose energy has lingered in your memory for a reason. Maybe today is the day to reach out. Not for closure. Not for certainty. Just for connection. Just because your heart says it's time. In the quiet practice of love without condition, you begin to rebuild the spaces that once felt distant or fractured. You learn that receiving care does not make you weak, it makes you more whole. You learn that presence is more powerful than performance. And you realize that no matter how far you've traveled away from that sense of warmth, it's never too late to come home to it. This is the offering of number 6, a return to harmony, not as an ideal, but as a lived, breathed experience. One conversation, one choice, one softened edge at a time. Power has many forms. Sometimes it's loud, commanding attention the moment it enters a room. Other times, it's quiet but undeniable, like gravity, steady, certain, inescapable. After softening into the emotional clarity of number 6, where love and connection reminded you of your humanity, number 8 arrives to awaken your sense of agency, your relationship with responsibility, and your capacity to hold energy, especially the energy of wealth, with precision and presence. This is not just about money. This is about alignment with influence, discipline, and legacy. Number 8, in many traditions, represents the full spectrum of cause and effect. It is the number of karma, not as punishment or reward, but as a mirror. It shows you exactly what you've cultivated, internally and externally, and returns it in form. Think of it not as judgment, but as reflection. Every thought, every action, every intention you've held with consistency is shaping the structure of what's now unfolding. This is the part of the journey where the universe stops whispering and begins responding. For Leo, a sign naturally attuned to leadership and visibility, this is a potent call to step out of performance and into embodiment. You've already been seen. You've already inspired. But now the question becomes, can you sustain the level of energy you're asking to receive? Can you hold more, not through control, but through clarity? Prosperity is often misunderstood as accumulation, when in truth, it is the ability to hold and direct energy without leaking it. Whether that energy shows up as money, opportunity, or creative momentum, it responds not to how much you want it, but to how well you're prepared to channel it. And number 8 doesn't care for quick wins. It asks you to build something that lasts. Imagine a river. If the banks are too loose, the water floods and disperses. If they're too tight, the flow is choked and stagnant. But when the structure is balanced, firm yet adaptable, the river becomes a force. That's what number 8 invites you into: flow with form, power with integrity, ambition guided by awareness. Not to hoard energy, but to guide it. Not to dominate, but to steward. The practical wisdom here lies in learning to treat your relationship with money, work, and time as extensions of your energy body. Where do you feel drained after you give? Where do you overextend in the name of productivity? Where have you been shrinking to fit old expectations of humility? These are the fault lines where your field may be leaking power. And number 8 urges you not to hustle harder, but to repair those leaks from within. It's also time to upgrade your rituals around wealth. Not in a way that feels flashy or performative, but deeply personal. Create a vision board, yes, but make it real. Use images that make your nervous system soften, not spike. Invest in a tool, course, or space that supports your growth, not just because it's trending, but because it aligns with where you're going, not just where you've been. Wealth that feels good is wealth that stays. And there's another layer here, a subtler one. In many ancient teachings, true power is not measured by how many people listen to you, but by how steady your mind remains when no one does. The ability to generate and direct energy, not reactively, but consciously, is what transforms financial potential into true abundance. There is no need to grasp or chase. There is only alignment. And alignment comes when the inside and outside no longer contradict each other. You don't attract abundance by convincing the universe you're ready. You attract it by becoming a space that naturally holds it. That begins with the belief that you don't need to earn more to be valuable, you need to embody more of your truth. The more you root into that knowing, the more magnetic you become. And that's when power stops being something you reach for, and starts becoming something you carry. Effortlessly. Quietly. Undeniably. Some turning points are quiet. They don't arrive with fanfare or fireworks. They begin with a pause, a breath, a soft but certain shift in how you see yourself in the world. And as you've walked through clarity, emotional honesty, and a deepening relationship with your own power, something new begins to form, something less about achievement and more about impact. That's what the numbers 19 and 33 bring forward, the sense that your path is no longer only yours, and that true fulfillment now lies in how you choose to show up for others. The energy of 19 signals the closing of one cycle and the initiation of another, but not in a way that feels like a dramatic ending. Rather, it's a subtle but profound realization that the chapter you've been writing, through growth, trials, success, setbacks, is no longer just about your own evolution. It's now becoming a foundation for someone else's beginning. There's a quiet beauty in recognizing that your story, with all its complexity, can become a bridge for someone who hasn't yet found their footing. And Leo, with your natural magnetism and ability to inspire, you are uniquely positioned to carry that kind of light. What makes number 19 particularly powerful is its link between identity and purpose. It carries the 1 of leadership, of taking initiative, and the 9 of wisdom, completion, and compassionate detachment. Together, they ask you to lead not from ego, but from experience. Not because you want to be followed, but because you understand the terrain, and now you're ready to guide. That transition from seeker to teacher, from creator to mentor, is not one you force. It unfolds naturally when you begin to live in alignment with what you've already learned. And then, number 33 steps in, not to elevate you above others, but to remind you that you are already enough to make a difference. This master number doesn't speak in grand declarations. It whispers through presence, through resonance, through the way you make people feel safe just by being fully yourself. In its highest form, 33 isn't about being in charge, it's about being of service. It's leadership that uplifts rather than directs. Influence that heals instead of demands. This moment is a gentle call to begin looking at your gifts, your voice, your experience, your compassion, as tools that extend beyond personal gain. Not because you owe anyone anything, but because the joy of contribution is now becoming a natural extension of your alignment. What if your next level isn't something you achieve, but something you share? That could begin with something as simple as a private act of kindness. Something anonymous, something humble. Or maybe it starts by naming 3 ways you could offer light without expecting it back. That shift, of giving without clinging, of serving without needing to be seen, is not a loss of power. It's the refinement of it. It's understanding that real strength is not in how loud you are, but in the calm you radiate that allows others to feel seen. There's a deep teaching that says when one stops focusing solely on their own liberation, and instead moves toward lifting others, their burdens begin to dissolve naturally. Why? Because in serving, we reconnect with our essence. In contributing, we rise beyond the limitations of self-concern and enter a more expansive state of being, one where love becomes a natural flow, not a resource to guard. So as number 19 closes the door with grace, and 33 opens a new one with quiet devotion, you're being reminded that you were never meant to walk this path alone, or only for yourself. You're not just a presence in the room, Leo. You are the room's atmosphere. The warmth. The gravity. The shift people don't always know how to name, but always feel. And perhaps the greatest leadership you'll ever offer is your choice to be fully present in a way that makes others believe in their own light again. There are some journeys we take that don't end with a destination, but with a realization. And perhaps this one, the journey through your 6 cosmic numbers, is less about arrival and more about return. A return to what's always been within you. A return to presence. To remembering. To reclaiming. From the quiet wisdom of number 7 to the soul-aligned purpose of 17, the warmth of connection in 6, the power of structure in 8, and the expansive leadership embodied by 19 and 33, each number didn't just speak to your future, it revealed something about your essence, right now. You didn't need to become someone else. You didn't need to hustle your way into worthiness. All that was ever required of you was your presence. Leo, your power has never been just about how bright you can shine. It's about how bravely you can stand still in your light without apologizing for it. So many times, the world teaches us to roar to be heard, to compete, to prove, to outshine. But this moment is different. This is the version of you that doesn't need to roar. Because your presence already shifts the room. Your clarity, your calm, your confidence without explanation, that's the kind of magnetism wealth and purpose don't resist, they recognize. Let me ask you this. What would your life look like if you truly stopped asking for permission to be powerful? What kind of choices would you make if you no longer questioned whether you were ready, and simply chose to begin? Which version of yourself would finally get to breathe, not in the future, but today? You've already walked through the keys. You've received the invitations. Now, this is the space where the shift happens, not with more knowing, but with deeper embodiment. What's one action you can take today that aligns with the number that spoke most to your heart? What's one habit you're ready to release, one belief you're ready to rewrite, or one truth you're finally willing to say out loud, not because it makes sense to others, but because it feels right for you? And if you're feeling something stir in your chest right now, that quiet nudge, that inner yes, honor it. Let this video be more than something you watched. Let it become a moment you decided to return to yourself. Before we close, I want to take a breath with you. Right here. Right now. A real one. Inhale. Feel your power settle. Exhale. Release the need to chase anything more. You are already enough, not because of what you'll do tomorrow, but because of who you are in this very breath. And thank you, truly, for being here. For opening your energy, your heart, your time to this message. Every single like, every comment, every quiet moment of reflection you take as part of this journey means the world to this space we're creating here at Eternal Mindfulness. Your presence uplifts not just this channel, but a field of people walking through growth, clarity, and purpose, together. So let's stay connected. If one of the numbers we explored today is still echoing inside you, I'd love for you to drop it in the comments. Which one called to you the loudest? Which one felt like it was written just for you? And if this message resonated, tap that like button to let the energy land. Subscribe if you'd like to continue walking these cosmic paths with me. There's so much more to unfold, and your energy is always welcome here. Now say it softly, just for yourself. I choose to be present. I choose not to shrink. I choose to lead with quiet light. You didn't come here by accident, Leo. And you don't need to roar to be felt. This time, your stillness is the message. This time, you already are the answer.